I want everybody to know that Meadow just stood up and bent over so that the blood could rush to her head.
Yeah.
So she
touch
could
your toes, do a little stretch.
Yeah.
I needed my brain needed some more blood.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Welcome to the intro that doesn't have video, but the episode does.
Happy Monday.
Happy Monday. Welcome back.
Very thoughts
Meadow,
are very.
who's on today?
Ryan Kingman, baby, my very own mentor, which we actually all just call him Kingman. But January is actually mentorship month, so it's perfect that we had him on. We've been wanting him on for so long. He has monumentally changed my life and career, and I'm so excited because he gave us so many tidbits about the lessons that we speak to personally all the time too. So to give you a little background of why we're obsessed with him, Kingman is an entrepreneurial brand founder and a marketing leader who's played such a pivotal role in the coolest brands in sports, entertainment, creative cultures. Some of those names include like Stance, Element, Igloo, Studio Remains, so many more. His latest venture is called Temple of Wellness and Weirdness, clearly our favorite things, which is launching soon with their own podcast. And so, of course, we dove into all the things that led Kingman to this space and what those weird and well practices are that have monumentally changed his life.
We talked about so much in this episode. You have no idea. We kind of touched on everything from entrepreneurial stuff and starting your own business to, we got a little personal as we do here on Thoughts by Mary. We talked about sticking to your why and identifying your company's values, as well as creating a cohesive team, which I asked so many questions about because I like to hear about how people run their businesses and how they hire people.
The authentic leadership tips were just astounding.
They were giving. We also talked about why the money will follow the movement, something that ever since Meadow started working with Kingman, she reminds me of probably once a week. We also talked about ice baths and Wim Hof, which I'm always interested about, and his newest infatuation, stoicism. There's so much in this episode. I think it's going to be a really valuable one. So enjoy.
And Kingman even mentioned that he'd be willing to come back and do sort of like a Q&A style with us too. He can kind of be everyone's internet mentor. So if you have good career questions, if this pings things for you, if you're, interested in entrepreneurship, authentic leadership, all that jazz, obviously send us a DM or on our website, submit a question there and we'll bring him back.
Or message us.
He could be your mentor too, digitally, baby.
Yeah. Or message us on Patreon because we answer those real quick.
We do answer those real quick.
All right.
Thank you so much, Kingman.
Thank you, Kingman. Enjoy the episode.
Do you have an ice bath in your backyard? Do you have like your own?
Oh, I have like a converted freezer. It's like a Frigidaire. You just lift the lid, then you jump in, and then it's not like one of the things. It's not
that. You guys should make like an ice bath tank. Hey,
yeah.
That's as long as it gets the job done.
Yeah, seriously.
Well, they have these really nice ones now. Like there's a brand called Cold Plunge. There's a few of them, and they're like these really nice ceramic tubs that have circulating water. You don't have to change it as much.
Dang.
They're like fancy. They fancy.
They'll sponsor your podcast and then you'll get one.
Oh, that would be amazing. That would be amazing. That's the dream right there.
It'll happen.
I started with like kind of the real raw dog style, which is you just get a horse trough and fill it with water and then go get bags of ice, fill it with ice and jump in.
I think that's
But it's not that great. Like it's not that sustainable because it's expensive to get the ice. The ice melts pretty quick.
Yeah.
Unless you live somewhere cold, you just leave it with water and then you just like smash the ice and jump in. That'd be ideal. But in Southern California, it doesn't get that cold.
Not going to work. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Not going to work. But I'm still like shivering I was in there for a couple minutes, like 15, 20 minutes ago.
Oh, I thought you were going to say 15, 20 minutes.
Me too. I was like, what?
Oh, no.
What's your record?
No, probably like 6 minutes. Something like that.
Damn.
I don't, after a while, it's diminishing returns. It's just, some people do it. I think it's more like, tough ego factor to stay in for a long time. I think was I reading saw Joe Rogan went in for like 20 minutes once, which I don't know if there's a health benefit for that long. I just don't know. I don't think so. They say like 11 to 15 minutes a week, just broken up.
Okay.
So like could be a minute now or a minute there, 2 minutes there, whatever. Sometimes it's so cold I can do no more than a minute. Like if it gets sub 30, sometimes it's like it hurts so bad to be in there.
Totally.
Yeah, I can imagine. Wow. I really want to try it.
Yeah, Gabby and I have still not tried it, so we need to.
I think the last time I ever did anything remotely similar, I was in high school when I was running cross country, and I would get in the gross ice bath in the trainer's room. But that's as far as it's gone.
Yeah.
My version of that is summer camp when they have the river running down from the mountain that's freezing, and they make you hold on to someone's ankles and go under for as long as you can. That's as much as I got.
Yeah.
There you go.
I would love to do that.
Let's do we could do a big bear retreat, podcast retreat. Well, I'll go do it.
Oh my God.
Why not?
I'm so down. I'm so down. Welcome to the podcast.
Welcome. Thoughts may vary.
We've been trying to get you on for so long.
The day has finally arrived.
Thanks for being patient.
The day has arrived.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for being patient with us and flexible with us.
Oh, absolutely.
We start every podcast by asking our guests what they're currently unpacking. I always tell people, like, take that as it resonates.
Oh boy.
It could be as like serious, light and fluffy. Yeah, exactly. Serious.
Well, I'm in kind of a interesting, precarious place in life right now. So I'm unpacking a lot.
Let's dig in.
Life is difficult, man. It's like, I think through social media or whatnot, you get this perception that stay posy, or, there's so many sort of like quotes and tidbits of inspiration and motivation out there that you can kind of like draw upon. But at the end of the day, those are just that. They're just inspiration and motivation. And it's like, doesn't really help you get through what you need to get through. And, there's challenges all around. I mean, I'm a parent, I'm a partner with my wife, I'm starting a business. I've worked in different businesses. I try to be there for other people where I can to help them if they need, but it's all kind of a lot. And I love it. It's the journey, it's life. That's what it's about. But to unpack some shit, to answer directly to your question, now, I'm unpacking like where I'm at in life. I mean, I'm, middle-aged and have had some success, but not a ton of success. And I'm unpacking sort of like, what am I put here on this earth to do? I don't want to just work for somebody. I want to do something that has some impact and some meaning. And so that's kind of what I've been working on. But, unpacking such a broad term, like I hope we could spend this whole time just unpacking my fucking psychological mayhem.
And that's our solo episodes.
Yeah.
That's what literally what we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a lot.
It's a lot. It's so true. And it kind of leads me like swan dives into my first question for you perfectly, because I kind of wanted to talk about one, just introducing you as my mentor. Do you know, I don't even think I told you, do you know it's Mentorship Month?
No.
It's Mentorship. Happy Mentorship Month to us.
Hey, happy Mentorship
Cheers
Month
to us.
to us. Yeah.
I actually got you a small gift, but I think you have it. But I got it on the off chance that like if you didn't have it, it's required. I'll give it to you. I'll show you.
One for home, one for office.
Oh, I love
there you go. Yeah. I give one for the podcast best, just in case. But I wanted to kind of talk about how we originally met and got connected, because I just like speaking of like finding inspiration and aspiration and that not helping you move through. When we originally met at the Lonely Ghost retreat, kind of like the main people of Lonely Ghost at the time went on this retreat to kind of like plan the following year or whatnot. And you came in and gave like a little talk or a little lecture with two things that were not only inspiring, but also were like direct, tangible steps of how to like act in alignment with your mission or what you're trying to do here. Maybe not here on this earth, but here in your work. And I've never stopped thinking about them since. I bring them up to Gabby and like every Thoughts May Vary like powwow session. I talk about these, I feel like. So I kind of wanted to give the people a little tidbit on what that was and have you elaborate on them.
Yeah. What did I say?
You said a lot of good shit. There's two main things. The first one was when you were at Stance, you talked about not only the importance of creating like such authentic values and kind of like what you're saying, like authentically bringing in like what you're about, what you're going through into what you're doing, because that's like the way to be successful and the way for you to find your own happiness in what you're doing. But then you also took that a step further and talked about actually creating the opportunities for the people that you're working with or that you're employing to practice those values in real time and like the opportunities to express them. And you told us the story about how you like took your team on kind of like a scavenger event. Do you remember that? I want you to kind of say more things on that.
Elaborate. Yeah. So when we started Stance, I mean, we had certain values, I think, as individuals, but we hadn't really gotten together and sort of identified what they would be from a brand standpoint. And then to kind of canonize those so they're sort of like, on the wall and mean something. And it takes a long time. And we spent a fair amount of time coming up with what we figured our brand values would be, both internal and external. From an internal standpoint, it was really like how we wanted people to show up, what we could do for them, how we wanted them to interact with us as, employees or whatnot. I remember it by GP Peck. So gratitude, personal responsibility, performance, entrepreneurship, and creativity were the key values. They've added a new one now, which is respect. It really meant something for us to kind of have these to sort of rally around, both what to look for in people you want to work with, how you kind of conduct yourself in your day-to-day work, and sort of things to aspire towards. So entrepreneurship is one that's like, not everyone's going to be entrepreneurial, but there's certain things you can do or opportunities you can present for people to express themselves entrepreneurially. Mm-hmm. And then the sort of field trip that I organized for the department.
Yeah, field trip, excursion.
That was kind of basically meant to kind of bring those values to life in a meaningful way, allow them to express them in different ways. And this was at the recommendation of a mentor of mine.
Oh, really?
And she recommended I do this. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, Shelby. We met up at Deus one day in Venice. I was talking about some of my challenges and she expressed some ideas. And this was one of them, was to kind of put together this trip. And then I took it one step further and kind of was like, hey, maybe I can rally it around our values, the brand values, and give them an opportunity to express them. So I got our whole team at the time. I think there was probably like 12 to 15 of us, and we broke ourselves up into groups. And I basically gave everyone $100 and said, you got to go to these specific locations. Like there was a few stores that I wanted them to check out as it correlated back to the brand. I think it was Mollusk, Deus, a couple other stores. And then I said, I want you to use this money to feed yourself, buy some sort of media that is meaningful to you. And then we're all going to meet back up in the afternoon and see what we came up with. And everyone went on their merry way. And some people used the money. Like one group I thought was really cool. They used the money to buy pizza for themselves, but then they bought extra pizza and went and handed it out to homeless people on the boardwalk. Some people rented bikes instead of driving around. One person in particular found in this vintage store, he bought these, like in regard to buying the media, he bought these old vintage photographs that were shot like in Detroit and brought those. And so we basically met up in the afternoon or the evening and sort of shared how we kind of felt we brought those values to life in certain ways. Mm-hmm. And then we shared our interpretation of the media that we got was some people bought a magazine. I think somebody bought some music. But it was just a cool way to kind of get everyone out of the office, rally around the values, let them interpret them in their own way, make it fun. I put people together that wouldn't necessarily be together typically, like they wouldn't hang out. But, here's our web dude and, our head of women's marketing. Get people out of their comfort zone and be a little bit vulnerable in like expressing themselves. Yeah. I remember sitting at the dinner afterwards kind of going like, wow, that worked. Like that actually worked.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating that like you're able to run a successful business and B, at the same time, be able to have like the wherewithal to be checking in on your team to like find, okay, where is this individual person growing? Like, where are they lacking? Where can they have more space? My first like real job, I guess, out of college, like I had a boss where she was really, really, really in tune with I was her assistant. So with me personally, making sure that like I was constantly growing and doing things that were interesting for me and would add value. And I appreciated that so much. So whenever I like get to talk to leaders like you who clearly do the same, I always think it's interesting, like, what is your vetting process like when you're hiring someone? Like, do you spot those values within people? Like, what does the interview process look like? Is it just like a vibe check? Obviously the resume needs to check out, but then like from there, how do you like cultivate a team of people who like are like-minded enough, but also different enough that like, it's not going to be an echo chamber?
It's hard to do because I think in interviews, people kind of bring their best and present themselves in a certain way. The resume says one thing that kind of like checks the box of their business acumen. Are they able to do the job that needs to be done? But then there's sort of a cultural or personality diagnostic you got to do with them as well, which is hard to get to know somebody in an hour, or say it's 3 different hour-long interviews. And the majority of the time you probably spent going through the business aspect of it and what we need to do and can you do this and what have you done previously versus like, hey, what do you like on the weekends?
Yeah.
And some people think that's probably a little bit imposing or asking too much. We used to do, I'll use Stance as an example because I think we did a good job of this there. I'm sorry, I'm still shivering from my ice.
We should have given you a heater first. Yeah.
But we used to do, we called them culture interviews.
Ooh.
The whole reason they existed was to sort of like get to know somebody on a personal level to the best of our ability in a short amount of time. So they went through probably a few different interviews to kind of like establish they had the business acumen to do the job. So that kind of was checked. Then they had to do a culture interview. And at the time, there was 5 co-founders. The person had to do a culture interview with 2 of the 5. So every employee we hired, 2 of the founders got to, sorry, the light just went out.
Oh.
Should I turn it back on?
Sure.
Whatever you want.
Okay, hold
You're
on.
Still good there.
No worries. Kingman, we paused, but I was just telling Gabby, like every time you give examples like this, I'm just like, I cannot fucking wait to be in a position with Thoughts May Vary where we implement all these lessons that you're teaching.
Yeah.
Like this, it's just so fucking cool the way that you've navigated that and like brought so much. I hate the word authenticity now because it's so overplayed, but like fucking realness to the way in which you went about shit. And like, it makes me so excited to have you as an example of like what I want to be in a position of power as a leader when I get there.
Oh.
It makes me so motivated. I can't even tell you.
I'd love to say I could take credit for all this stuff. I mean, this was definitely a group effort. I'd say our CEO, Jeff Curl, took a lot of insights from kind of emerging tech world. I think some of that stuff played out not so great. Like one of the ones that we leaned into heavily was a communal workspace.
Okay.
And it's just really difficult to have a communal workspace where everyone's sitting a few feet apart from each other. It's noisy. It's like, it's really tough. Everyone has their headphones on. Then what do? You can't give everyone offices either. So trying to figure out what works. And I think in the last 10 plus years, there was a lot of experimentation done. And a lot of it was driven by big tech like Google and Apple and, their meditation pods and the opportunity to partake in different classes and whatnot. So we tried to extrapolate some of the stuff that worked best in those areas and bring them down to our little world of stance. But Jeff was really sort of a pioneer in that for us. But I had a great time learning about it and helping be sort of like a voice at the table to implement this stuff and kind of like cast my opinion on what would work, what wouldn't work. There's so many things we did. We did book clubs. We if somebody was being a workaholic, we forced them to take a week off, a paid week off.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so a lot of like cultural amenities, I'd say, that they can work in your benefit, but they do have to be sort of like closely not monitored, but just, some people take advantage of them.
For sure.
Yeah.
We had free meals here at Stance. We had an in-house chef every day cooking breakfast and lunch. And, some people would come in, eat breakfast, eat lunch, go out to lunch, come back. And so you're like, well, wait, we provide the food so that you don't have this necessity to feel like you have to leave to go buy food and it's a distraction to your day. You can just eat quickly, get back to work. And then some people, they think, oh, you just want me to stay here all day. And you're like, no, it's just actually, it's an affordance for you to like not have to like take yourself out of your work, go somewhere else and pay for food, etc. So it's kind of like two sides to every coin. God, what was I talking about in the beginning? The
cultural interviews. Go back to kind of like weeding out how you can tell when employees are going to take advantage of that, maybe.
And just kind of getting to know people. Just my questions, I was pretty direct, like tell me about a challenging time in your life and how you overcame it. I don't even know if it's legal from an HR standpoint, some of the questions that I asked back then. But I was really trying to get to know somebody because it's like, could be somebody that you work with, could be somebody you have no interaction with. One takeaway that was great is I got to know a lot of people that I would never have regular interaction with, somebody from accounting or, finance or production that I would have probably never intersected with outside of like a bigger meeting. But I got to know them and a little bit about them and if they have kids, what kind of, media they like to ingest, whether it's like, are you a book reader? Are you a movie watcher? Are you do you Netflix and chill? Like, what's your vibe? Like, and so we get to know a lot of people in a really meaningful way. Again, we already checked the box of like, they can do the job. That part's done. Now it's like, what kind of person are you? Are you the kind of person that if I had to spend, 10 days on the road with you, is that going to be a good 10 days? Or is it going to be like, oh my God, this person's driving me crazy. But yeah, so these interviews were really just like a get to know you kind of deal, not a, hey, how are you in Excel? And what's your PowerPoint skills look like? And you can kind of ask some questions where you can derive a couple conclusions about leadership or, are they an entrepreneurial thinker or do they express gratitude? Like, some of the questions that we asked were somewhat probing, but it was really mostly just to get to know them and make sure that they were cut from the same cloth that we were in hopes that we can kind of build a community of like-minded individuals.
And like preserve the energy of the space and the like brand that you're investing so much of yourself into.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, it makes so much sense. Yeah,
and it's crazy. I mean, what is it? The saying, "One bad apple ruins the bunch."
Yeah.
Like it can be really difficult if you let that negativity or dare I say, like a cancer into the culture. You might not even recognize it at first, but then you're like, "What is going on?" And then eventually you can, do a diagnostic and figure out where it's coming from. And then it's just to unwind all that is so hard.
Yeah,
especially when you spent time getting to know somebody and you're like, "Oh, I thought we like vetted them in a meaningful way." whoops,
Totally.
I guess we messed up.
Okay. The other thing that you said that I would love you to speak more on, honestly, selfishly, because it just as a reminder for Gabby and I, and our thoughts may vary, is the money follows the movement.
Oh my God. Meadow brings this up once a week, but it's so
this
true.
is my fucking slogan for what keeps us going.
It's so true. I would love to hear it straight from you.
Yeah. Gosh.
Straight from the horse's mouth.
I think the context was around sort of like the brand, what they stood for. This was at Lonely Ghost at the offsite.
Right.
And I've always been a big believer in sort of the why.
Yeah.
You got to start there. If you focus too much on the what and strategies to get to that, you lose your why. Yeah. And you've gotten into this for a specific reason. You've developed a business with a reason to exist. You know, there should be a desired outcome for sure, but you can't ever forget that why. I feel like if you're doing it for the right reasons and you're confident, you're, again, overused term, authentic to your business or your cause, whatever it may be, that inevitably you will find the right path and the profit will find you. Now, that's not to say just because you do something great and you're committed to it that there will be money or profit. To kind of contrast this a little bit, somebody recently said to me, no margin, no mission. As I'm in the throes of developing a business and it's kind of, I'd say, a little more mission centric. Yeah. But at the end of the day, like, you still have to build a business. And if you're not making money, you can't develop that cause or you can't develop that mission. At the end of the day, it's like, start with why, believe in yourselves, be devout to your cause, your reason to exist. Don't focus on the money and forget about the why. Because that you end up starting making, compromising decisions. You could jeopardize what you got into this for in the beginning. Because you're like, we have to hit this certain profit threshold, or we have to get this, this many users, or this, whatever it may be. So just don't ever lose focus of that why you got into it, especially when it's mission or purpose driven, because that's what's going to kind of get you through the inevitable challenges that lay ahead. And when you're kind of like grinding it out and thinking like, God, why am I even doing this? This is just driving me nuts. You kind of settle back into that why and go, okay, no, there's a deeper meaning to my work. There's a purpose here. The money will come. If you build it, they will come.
Yeah. If you build it, they will come. I think, Meadow, you sent me this on Instagram the other day. There was like this Venn diagram that you sent me.
I know
exactly
what you're talking about.
And it was talking about the sweet spot of like what you'll get paid for in life and like where that success comes from. And it was like the combination of profession and vocation, where vocation was like what the world needs. So it was like your vocation and your mission is like part of the Venn diagram. And then the other half is like your profession and your passion. And that's like what you're good at. And then when those two come together, so your profession and your vocation, like that's what you get paid for. That's like, that's the sweet spot right there. Supposedly,
I've seen that before.
According to the diagram.
I love
Venn
diagrams.
I love the Venn diagram.
You would, of course you do. I also feel like that why is so poignant. I feel like we've talked about this too, Kingman, in that stage of brand building where like maybe you did the like scrappy startup thing, you like finally have some means of success, and then there's like a burst of growth really quickly. And I think that's something, hopefully, right? I think that's something that I've been lucky enough to see a couple brands navigate that and like make mistakes and do it well. But I feel like it's almost like people forget to come back to that consistently. So I feel like that's even going back to what you said about like creating the opportunities to like express your values with your company throughout time. Like coming back to that consistently helps you in those little phases of growth to not get lost in the sauce. Well, essentially.
When do you know when it's time to pivot if everything is based on that initial why?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to say when. I think it's sort of a sixth sense, or it's an intuition that you have. You might be right on the cusp of that success and you just don't know it. It feels like you're in there's a psychological diagram of businesses where it's the beginning of the journey is this uninformed optimism and then informed pessimism. And then you get into the valley of despair, and then you come back up to informed optimism. And it's just this journey that most like startups and entrepreneurs go through. And you could be in the valley of despair, just like, this isn't working, I'm not going to make it. And you kind of have to rely on your why, mentors, outside influence, like having people give you candid feedback, because you might be on the precipice of like the breakthrough. You just don't know.
Totally.
And there's no answer to it necessarily. I think it's just, you got to if you know, you know. But I would encourage anyone going through that, and I've been going through it myself personally. I feel like I'm in the valley of despair most of the time, and you just gotta like fucking knuckle up and you know, get to work. And it's hard because that's when you're just like you feel defeated almost. It's very psychological, and it's just. But at the same time, if there comes a point where you've exhausted all potential whatever resources, the thesis is not correct, the business isn't profitable, you should have some like little glimmers of hope, even if it's just like a crumb. But you know, a crumb leads to another crumb, and all of a sudden you got a cookie, and then all of a sudden you got a feast. Just don't give up without having exhausted all the potential resources around you. You know, sometimes it's outside feedback and very candid feedback, like, you know, somebody that isn't so emotionally wound up in whatever it is that you're doing. Because that can be very emotional, and you can get, you know, blinders on. And sometimes it takes a little outside perspective to just kind of shake you up a little bit and go, oh, okay. I mean, I've had to go through this recently a number of times, and it sucks.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But
with temple stuff recently?
Yeah. And just in my life too, different times, you know, I'll be holding on to something so tight.
Yeah.
And I've seen it with other people where I was having a dinner with somebody once, and they're expressing all their frustrations and their work and this thing. And I was like, man, it was so easy for me to have this perspective. I was like, man, you're just holding on too tight. You can't, it's not yours, first off. And I think they should appreciate the level of passion and commitment you bring to this job, but it's not going to change, and you're holding on too tight, and just let go. Some things you can't control. It took that outside perspective, though, of somebody who's been there and can kind of recognize that. And not to say it's just that was one time in particular, I was like, oh shit, I could fully see.
You are very good at that. Don't sell yourself short.
The power of mentorship.
I was like, that is a perfect pitch for why people should have mentors.
Yeah.
It's so true. It's that dynamic. You've done that for me countless times.
Thanks.
Yeah. But you know what? Interestingly enough, that's perfect transition too, because I want to get into your why. Selfishly, I want to know your life story because you've teased it to me multiple times and I haven't gone the full picture. But also you were on your friend's podcast recently, and I thought it was so interesting because you kind of talked about growing up and having zero aspirations and like not being attached to what you were doing in a work or career sense at all. And I want to know how, like, kind of like your life mission, especially with what you're doing with Temple, which I will of course get into too, but like how that aligned with going from zero aspirations and not really caring to being like so self-motivating, self-starting, and building up crazy fucking cool brands.
Oh, thanks.
Of course.
Man, during that podcast, because they asked the question, I was like, I don't really know. I've never really reflected back on what got me out of my sort of like, I don't know, shithead phase. Like I was just like a punk, you know, I was like a skateboarder, didn't have any aspirations. I hung around my friends. We all kind of, it was partly because I grew up in Hawaii. Even when I moved to California, I didn't really find anything that got me excited. And
you never went to school. I remember that part of the podcast. Yeah. Still moved to California and didn't go to school.
Yep. I thought that's what I needed to do. I was kind of like, oh, is this what people do? They go to college and they learn a course, and then they take that course and they do it in their life. I don't fucking know. Yeah. As I've reflected back on it, I think a couple things were impactful to me. One was martial arts. I've always been a fan of martial arts, and I've practiced different martial arts through my youth, but then I participated in this one in Hawaii, and I started to see like progress. And I was like, oh.
What kind of facet of martial arts were you doing?
It was called Kempo. It's like a Chinese
I've
karate.
Heard of it. Yeah. And Aaron is obsessed, so I know a little bit.
And it was just like this thing where I saw where if I challenged myself, I could improve myself. And I started kind of like delving into a lot of books on Eastern philosophy and martial arts specifically. It sort of just hit a thread with me or whatever. It resonated. And I really started to dig in on it. And I just realized that there's this potential we all have. And I hadn't tapped into mine or realized I even had it. I was just so blurred out by whether it was partying or just not having any aspirations or just kind of getting by day to day that I didn't recognize it. And so I think through that, and then I got this job when I moved out to California. I kind of had a bunch of random jobs, and I worked at this skateboard screen printer. And I started at the very bottom, like bottom of the skateboard industry, even if you will. I was scraping the excess paint off the boards after they screened them with a razor blade and like sticking them back on the racks. And then from there, I moved up to the shrink wrap machine. And then from there, I moved up to like inventory management. And it was just like, saw this progress that I had never experienced before. And it was so subtle and so small. And it was like, but I felt this like desire to improve myself, both in martial arts, in my life, in my work. And I started to take things more seriously. I started to really
Roughly what age? Sorry.
It's probably like 25, 26, something like that.
Cool.
So I'd gone quite a while just randomly swimming through life.
Kingman, I heard this the other day, and it's like my new favorite saying that kind of goes along with your timeline. Peaking in your 20s is the new peaking in high school.
I love that.
Obsessed with that. So I read it somewhere and I can't get out of my head. I love that you were like mid 20s.
I need to tattoo that on my forehead.
I know, literally. Okay, keep going, please.
And so I got that job, and then I got another job that was an improvement. And then I got another job, and I saw this like steady increase in like both capacity, compensation, and sort of like the accolades that came with it. And it felt really good to me. And then when I got a job as a team manager at a place called Giant Skateboard Distribution, that's where I was introduced to what I didn't even know at the time was marketing. I just hit a stride. It just felt like it just kind of came natural, and it felt really good. I've always had some sense of imposter syndrome my entire life to this day, but it didn't really feel like I was in the wrong place. I just felt like, this kind of comes naturally. And I just kind of went up from there. It was kind of a crazy ride from then to being a CMO at Stance, to being a president of a brand, to starting brands. It's been crazy experience. So there was not like a specific moment. It was just sort of a slow build phase. It took me like looking into myself, realizing a certain capacity that I had that I didn't realize I had, a little bit, probably of ego going, hey, you can do better than this. You can show up better than this. And I should say riddled with failures along the way.
Like, oh my God. Yeah. That's the only way to succeed. You fucking stumble from failure to failure. What's that famous quote? Stumble from success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, man.
That's
tough.
Winston Churchill, so baby. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk about somebody who's stumbled through. Yeah.
Period.
Like you see, it's real easy to get caught up in things and blame, it's this thing or that thing, or this didn't work out, and it's not. It's like those things exist. I just did a silly Instagram post about this the other day, but like I was watching a documentary by Jonah Hill about him and his psychotherapist.
I still need to watch it. I still
Gabby, I swear to God, Gabby, it's been on your homework list for so long.
I know.
It's so good.
It's so
One
good.
One part in particular, his doctor says, in life, there's three things that are just non-negotiable. And the sooner you come to terms with it, and the sooner you figure out ways and develop principles to work with it, the better off you'll be. And it's pain, uncertainty, and constant work. And I feel like in my life, I've smashed my metaphorical boat against those rocks so many times, but it's so true, man. There's going to be pain. You're going to have to deal with pain. And the better you are at dealing with it, the better life can be. Process through it. Don't just like ignore it or just like try to like absorb it. Because the sooner you absorb it, the sooner you can process it. There's so many times in my life where I was so sure-footed in something and so certain something was going to happen, whether it was a job or a payment for something or whatever it may be, and it didn't happen. And I was like so back on my heels, like what? I wasn't expecting this. And so coming to terms with the fact that there's going to be uncertainty, I don't know, it's really impactful. And then constant work, like you're always working on something. It's either your work, your life, yourself, your relationship. For me, it's my relationship with my wife, with my kids, with my friends, with myself. Myself is the hardest one, as I've realized in lots of therapy. Man, I'm fucked up.
Aren't we all?
Yeah. But it's just kind of coming to terms with it and just being it is what it is. Like I just have to make certain changes or just come to terms with things that I've been through that impact me and try to evolve from it.
Accept that part of yourself, like the other, like the work stuff, like accept it and move through it. Like you're saying. Yeah, totally.
That's life. That's the journey, I think.
Yeah.
We tend to get caught on this hedonic treadmill of like, if I just get to this promotion, or if I just get to this much money, or if I just get to this house that we need, or if we just move to this neighborhood, or if I just hit this car, whatever your treadmill is dictating your next thing is. And then you get to that thing and then you just want the next thing.
Yep.
And I've been like, not obsessing with, but like really kind of intrigued by stoicism as of late and some of their principles. it has resonated with me in a meaningful way. And so that's part of my daily ritual as I read like the Daily Stoic. I read a passage that's on the day and kind of just is a good gut check and reminder on, things.
What are those principles that you felt like resonated with you?
Well, I'm not a Stoic, but I think just the idea to like process through things, to kind of recognize things for what they are. Don't get too emotional in it. There's this idea, I think it's memento mori, which is like, we're all going to die. Like just acknowledge that we're all going to die and don't be fearful of it. So it kind of has this dark sort of facade a little bit, but it's not. It's actually pretty light once you kind of dive into it a little bit more. Again, I'm not like an aficionado on stoicism. Something that I've like really been intrigued by in recent months or years. And that one in particular is like, because I think you worry about so much. It's okay to worry, but like worry to what end? Like you have to try and solve things and resolve things, and like it's okay to kind of sit back and like evaluate your life and be a little stoic and just kind of like take inventory of what's really important to you. And it's fun. I'm like over indexed on stoicism. Probably I have my book that I read every day. I have this thing called the Daily Dad, which is a newsletter about parenting.
So cute.
Love that.
Which is stoic parenting. And then there's the Daily Stoic. Sometimes I'm like, oh, it's just too much stoicism.
Yeah.
And again,
like I got to branch out.
I'm like, oh. But again, it's just a good kind of gut check for me as of late. Yeah. That one's been really intriguing to me. But I've had these different, fascinations throughout my life of different, modalities or practices, whether it's martial arts or stoicism or, different wellness practices, meditation, microdosing. I'm very curious by nature and I like trying different things. Not everything, hits or is impactful, but I am a fan of kind of leaning in and trying to experience different things in an effort to help myself or help those around me. That part is sort of central to that curiosity, I think.
I feel like just as humans, like it's part of our nature to just be ever evolving. So it makes sense that our tools and practices are also going to be ever evolving, because for those to stay stagnant while we're growing, like no wonder we so often feel so misaligned and like lost.
Yeah.
Or when people get out of touch with their coping routine, like another way to say exactly what you're saying, Gabby, is like people will wake up one day and do the same coping routines that they thought have been working for them and realize they're a separate person than they were a year ago. Yeah. And it's not going to work the same way.
Yeah.
But I want to get into all your coping mechanisms because we haven't really dived into Temple yet, which is your latest venture, which is Temple of Wellness and Weirdness.
Temple of Weirdness and Wellness.
Weirdness and Wellness. Damn it. Temple of Weirdness and Wellness. I'll get it right. But I want to know kind of like what was like, which facet of that was your first one? How did it come up? How did it help you? Like walk us through your self-care routine now and like kind of how you got into all of them.
Yeah. It's been a journey. I think if I had to narrow it down, it's been my life of these different things. I mean, even when I was a kid and dealing with, being alone as a kid, I was, an only child. My mom, I was like a latchkey kid. I don't know if you guys know what that is. It's a Gen X thing.
No, tell us.
It's just basically you're kind of like left alone a lot as your parents worked. And so
is that a book? Latchkey Kids? Is that a book or something?
Oh, maybe there is, but that's just sort of a term for the generation of kids that grew up and kind of the way I did. I don't even know what the term is. I think latchkey, like you just go through the gate and you're in your house. I don't know.
Yeah.
But,
that's funny. Yeah.
Maybe there's a program, like an after school program. I think there's like a latchkey program.
Oh.
But anyway,
either way,
different coping mechanisms back then. But like you said, people evolve and people change, and like what worked then is certainly not going to work now. Mm-hmm. So I think my sort of pivotal moment for my current journey was I was having coffee in Kauai, in Honolulu Bay, with my friend Dylan, and we were just talking about stuff. And he's like, "Hey, have you heard of Wim Hof?" And I was like, "What? What's that?" And I literally had not heard.
Early.
I have not heard of it.
Because this is in your childhood. This is like you're a teenager.
Oh no. This is 2000.
Okay.
It's 2015.
Got it. Okay.
2000.
I was like, God damn.
Yeah.
No. Yeah.
Okay.
No,
that's
that
still pretty.
Amazing.
That's still. You're still
Wim
ahead
Hof
of the curve with that. Yeah, exactly. I'm like, damn.
But so he said it, and I was like, what is that? And he didn't tell me. He's like, oh, just go see Kyborg on the North Shore. So I was going from the North Shore of Kauai to the North Shore of Oahu. I was like, okay. So then I hit up Kyborg, who's this kind of like relatively intimidating human being from the North Shore, big guy, known for his history of fighting. He's a pretty radical guy. And so I hit him up. I was like, hey, Dylan told me to come see you about Wim Hof. He's like, okay, bro. Yeah, cruise over. Go grab bags of ice at the local hardware store. I was like, what? Okay. He's like, grab two big, like the big bags and come to my house at this time. I was like, okay. So I showed up at his house and I had these two big bags of ice. And I wasn't like super tight with Kyborg. I knew him a little bit. We'd hung out a couple times, but he wasn't like a bro yet. Like I consider him a good friend now. But he's like, bring trunks and a towel. So I had a towel. He's like, hey, lay down on the ground. Okay, start breathing. I'm just like, okay. And he's this big, intimidating guy. I'm like, okay, am I doing it right? He's like, hey, just go. Okay, hold your breath. And I'm all, okay. And it was like the most intense Wim Hof session I think I've ever had. And it was just this crazy, I was so nervous and trying to keep up and do it right. I'm like, I'm not doing it right. It's this. And I was like, whoa, I am doing it right. Cause I had this like really incredible experience. And then he's like, hey, we're done. Like jump in the ice bath. I was like, what? Okay. And I get in this ice bath. I'm like, oh my God, it's so freaking cold. Oh, this sucks. He's like, hey, breathe. And I did. And then I got out of the ice bath and I just felt like I was levitating. I was like, what did you just do to me? Like all I did was breathe and get in cold water. Like, whoa, this is radical. Yeah. And that was kind of it. And then I've gone, and then from there, I just went on this whole Wim Hof journey with different friends. I'd like do it for friends. I remember I was at this place in Mexico once, and we were at this like conference, and I grabbed a bunch of guys. I'm like, hey, you guys want to go to the hotel? And I'll like lead you guys in a Wim Hof breathwork session. They're like, some guys had done it, some guys hadn't. And all of a sudden we're up in this hotel room, and I'm like, hey, breathe. And I'm like leading him through this breathwork session. Oh no, it was a lot of fun. And then I got into doing ice baths. I bought like that horse trough, like I was telling you guys about a little bit ago. Yeah. Put it in my backyard. I'd host Wim Hof breath sessions and ice baths at my house. I just loved it. I just was like, I got to tell people about this and share it. And then that kind of put me on a journey into like lesser but more impactful practices like journaling, meditation, just regular breath work. And then even so far as like plant medicine and different modalities around that, I'm very, like I said, curious by nature. And if there's something that I think can like improve my well-being, I want to try it. And that's not to say I'm like addicted to like finding a wellness cure. Like I'm always looking for something new. I try it. And if it helps me, great. If it doesn't, cool, moving on. Like not everything is going to be like so impactful, but it's really like my journey into this. I'm like, wow, this has helped me so much. I want to help other people explore these different modalities, or at least express a way to like lean into them a little bit to make them not so seemingly foreign. And a lot has changed in the time that I had this vision to like, not a vision, but this inspiration to nowadays. I feel like, breath work, and I feel like a lot of people have cold plunges and hot saunas and doing breath work at their house on a regular basis. It was totally foreign just a handful of years ago.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Even plant medicine, psilocybin or cannabis or ayahuasca, they've become so much more commonplace these days, which is great because I think it helps people. It can help people. It's not for everybody. Like I'm not saying that everyone should do those things, but if you think you could benefit from it, then try it. If it doesn't do anything for you, then step away. If you don't think you benefit from it, then don't try it. There's certain things that everyone's different. Their biological makeup is different. There's so much more information out there nowadays through podcasts. Like I like to say I'm a book reader. I've read for a while. I was reading one book a month for a couple of years. Wow. And I felt really proud of myself, but I listen to way too many podcasts, but there's so much information out there in podcasts with like Dr. Andrew Huberman or, Rich Roll. I listen to a lot of Joe Rogan and, Jocko Willink. And there's just like so much incredible information that's just right there. And it's what you intend to do with the information. The information is one part, if it was just information, I heard, this is a quote, this isn't me saying this, but if it was only information that we needed, everyone would be a millionaire with like 6 packs and like fit bodies. Yeah. And it's not just that. It's like the application of this information and putting yourself out of your comfort zone and trying things for the first time. And this, I correlate back to that kind of white belt moment. which is like you show up and try something for the first time. It's going to suck. You're not going to be good at it. You're going to look goofy doing it, whether that's yoga, basketball, or surfing or whatever. You're not going to be a pro when you show up. And it just takes time and commitment and discipline. It's going to take a lot more time than you think. I think that's one of the sort of like detractions of our current sort of Instagram instant success society is like, oh, you can just go and like, you know, work from home and be a millionaire. This is how I did it. And everyone's like, oh, I want to do that. There's no get rich quick. There's no get healthy quick. There's no get fit quick. There's like all these things that people aspire to have or try to attain. It just takes a lot of work. Starting a brand takes a lot of work. There's so much bullshit. There's so much time. So many times you're like in the drudgery of it all, just like, God, this is not it. You just got to power through it. And that's like anything, a workout, like, you know, going to the gym for the first time. If you want to like try lifting weights, you're so intimidated because there's all these like fit people, guys, girls walking around. And you're like, I don't want to like do like the lightest weight on the bench. I've started doing this thing recently where we have a gym here at Stance, a pretty nice gym. And so I was coming here to work out. And then I was like, this is kind of boring by myself. I asked a couple of friends to come and they were similarly like, oh, I don't really work out that much. I'm like, just come. Like, there's no judgment for me, certainly. And it's been like, I'd say transformational for a few people where they're like, I would have never gone to a gym. Like, I don't want to be like known as like a gym person, but like, I'll come work out with you. And I'm not a fitness trainer by any stretch of the imagination, but I know a few things enough to where I could put us on a program and we like do a body part, like we'll do chest or we'll do some cardio or we'll do some fucked up Instagram workout that I see that I'm like, that looks hard. And it is, but it's just, again, I think it's just weirdly my nature to like see something, see an opportunity, try something. I like can't shut up about it. And then I'm like, I probably project it onto other people, you know, hopefully in a positive way.
In an effort for community. Yeah.
Yeah. I like building community. I like trying to do things. I like, you know, another friend of mine, Mike, and I do these supper clubs, which it was his suggestion. He's like, hey, let's organize these supper clubs. I was like, what?
It was so fun.
Yeah, it's just getting rad people together on a, you know, quarterly basis. We try and get some sponsors to pay for the dinner so we're not coming out of pocket. And, you know, who knows what comes of it? A good connection, some inspiration, a good meal, like all that stuff.
Yeah. Feels like your through line for everything, like even with what you were talking about with what you were unpacking and going back to like even the mission and brand building, like you're so good at releasing attachment to the outcome. And like really making, like you said before, like it's about the journey and not the destination. And when you release attachment to the outcome and can like find that motivation in each small step of the journey, whether it's like through jujitsu or like moving up the ladder of a skateboard shop, like that kind of like intrinsic self-motivation is what gets you through it all. Cause the fucking work never ends. That's all we talk about, whether it's for yourself or for others. It never fucking ends. Work, baby. It never ends. Yeah. I just love that you said be goofy because quite literally yesterday, like we're so aligned, it's not even funny. Literally yesterday, I was writing a blog post for a mental health nonprofit, kind of talking about like if resolutions are for you, how to develop a new mindset and like be a little bit more gentler rather than goals than mindset. And I talked about this Instagram video that went floating around. I'm pretty sure I sent it to you, Gabby, of Trevor Noah talking about why he thinks he's good at imitations is because
I didn't see
when
it.
he learned. Did I not send it? I'll send it to you later. It was him talking about, I will for sure. He was saying how like when children learn languages, one of the reasons why they're so good at it is their willingness to be goofy and imitate and be like, blah, 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 blah. But like, they don't give a fuck about what they sound like and how stupid they sound. But that like willingness to put that, like not have an ego or insecurities and just try to imitate until they kind of get it is what like releases you to learn more quickly and like be willing to be a fool. And that's kind of like exactly what you said. I fucking love that. Like just releasing that. Everyone starts as a beginner, kind of like releasing that limitation on yourself and just like be willing to be silly to a certain extent.
And it gets harder as you get older because you have more pride and you're more like you're denser and you're just like, oh, this is who I am. I don't know. I encourage people to try something new. I mean, I'm trying to be a podcaster all of a sudden. I'm like, what the hell am I fucking doing? I don't know anything about it. I like talking to people. I don't know. And there's a multitude of issues and so many snags and like things that I'm learning the hard way, but I'm just powering through it and I'm going to continue to try and do it. I'm just going to continue to do it. And you know, if you build it, they will come.
If you build it, they will come.
Exactly. Exactly.
I feel like that's a beautiful place to
wrap a bow on the conversation.
To wrap a bow on the conversation. We brought it full circle.
Sweet.
Yeah.
We brought it full circle.
Kingman, thank you for finally being here.
I know. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. Hopefully it made sense.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my,
more than sense.
First off, I don't want to come across as any sort of like aficionado in any of this stuff. I'm on the journey just like everyone. I'm learning every day. I'm failing every day. I have so many things that, I've wish I could have done better, but at the end of the day, I'm just going to keep going. And
but that perspective is what makes you the most like impactful mentor on my life. Like, granted, I haven't. You're my first kind of like formal mentor relationship, as you know, but like bringing that perspective to it and like constantly, I feel like, I know you're going to hate this now, given what you just said, but like every time I talk to you, it feels like a fucking masterclass for me. Like, it is so helpful for me to like absorb information and your perspective and like see you model as an example of how it doesn't end and how like, you know what you mean, like trying something new at a different stage of your life and not being afraid of what that looks like. Like, you are always such a fucking radical example of how I want to move through life. Well, and I thank you.
I'm very humbled by that and very appreciative. But yeah, I mean, hey,
no, let your ego swell a little bit with it. Yeah.
Oh man, it's scary. It's that puts pressure on me.
Don't let it. Don't let it.
Let's go. No, but I need that. I'm like, all right, let's
fuck it. We ball.
Let's fucking ball. Here we go.
And you know what Aaron told me the other day? It was such a kind of a tangent, but Future started rapping at like 45. Or something like that. I was like, oh shit. So I can like change my career like every decade of my life, like bet and still be, yeah, dude, I had no idea. Isn't that wild?
That's something I struggle with is like ageism. I'm like, oh man, am I too old to do this? Am I still relevant?
No.
What am I into? Is that even, it's just like all these things, but it's all that self-doubt. And there's an incredible book, Stephen Pressfield, The War of Art. And he talks about the resistance and how the resistance is just there, always waiting to like seep into your psyche and just stop you from doing whatever it is you want to do. And that really like resonated with me when I read that and was just sort of going, yeah, that is absolutely, I have the resistance. So it's like just sitting here waiting for me to like, and I just got to like fucking get out of here. Get off me. Like, it's like an hourly struggle. It's like, so many times just like, okay, this is resistance. Just buckle down, focus. That's what I need to focus on is focus. I need to be a better focuser because I'm so easy. I'm like squirrel. Oh, so shiny object. I'm like,
same.
Oh.
No, literally. Oh, that's Andrew Huberman's tips for us, huh? That's how I fucking try to learn to focus because everything he says.
What a G that guy is, man. Oh. I love
Dude,
him.
even,
I
love him so much. We have to get him on your podcast. Like even his tip about if you put a hat on during the second half of the day, like after your first 8 hours of waking up and then for your circadian rhythm, the second, if you put a hat on, lowering your visual ceiling helps you like focus in on analytical work. Like he has all those little tips. I'm like, get the fuck, dude, I'm telling you, he's incredible. We're going to get him on your podcast.
Manifest that.
I'm manifesting it for you.
Oh, it's my friend works with him. On his podcast. There's 4 guys that do
6
it. It's
degrees,
like a top
baby.
5 podcasts in the world, and there's just 4 of them.
Yeah.
Wow.
And cool. No, it's just the amount of information he retains. I'm just in such awe of. I'm like, I can't remember what I had for dinner last night, and he's got this biology like textbook, just blah, 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 blah. But in a way that's not oppressive or kind of like bores you. You're just like engaging. You're like,
no, it's approachable.
Yeah.
I wonder if he has a photographic memory. We got to end. I'm going to keep talking on this thing forever.
Yeah, sorry guys.
No, don't apologize.
The people love it. The people love it.
I'm so glad. Thank you for coming. Please come back.
All right, thanks.
Okay, now don't log off because we got to take a photo.
We got to take a picture.
Oh, let me turn the light on again. Hold on.
Okay, cool.
How's it going, y'all? It's Aaron. Don't let your Monday suck. Don't have those Sunday scaries. I'm tired of everybody waking up in the week saying, shit, it's Monday. You know what goes down? TMV releases every week on Mondays. Make sure you rate and review wherever you get your podcasts. And if you're watching YouTube, yes, TMV has a YouTube. Be sure to subscribe and ring that noti bell and never miss a thing. And also, join the TMV Familia by joining the Thoughts May Vary Patreon and by following @Thoughts May Vary Pod on Instagram and TikTok. Thank you for listening.
Great.
There you go.
Thanks, AB.
Got y'all.